Hey guys, welcome to the shop. Today I wanted to talk about the price of a free Bridgeport. Now, obviously, nothing is is actually free. And there's a lot of kind of not obvious costs when you buy a used machine. And even if you buy a mill, you're going to run into a lot of these costs, namely, small repairs. Now, the totals I'm going to read off to you don't include a neck riser. And I know the spider is damaged because one of the bolts just spins. So it's either broken off or I don't know. So I know I'm going to be in at least another $150 on top of this, and I haven't included the $620 I've spent on purchasing a brand new neck riser to bring this up another 4 inches to make it comfortable. Now, I'm 6 feet 4 inches, which does make me a little bit taller than average. So I think a 4-inch neck riser is really going to put this machine at the perfect height for me. I'm going to drop the leveling feet down 1.5 inches because I'm going to bring the machine up a net 3 inches, which is going to be really nice for me. If you're shorter or you do a lot of smaller work and you don't wind up having to stick a tap wrench in there all the time, I think that just bringing a normal J-head 2 or 3 inches off the ground is really nice, but it's not the end of the world if you do or don't do that. Now, when you buy a machine, there's definitely the cost of bringing it home. There's the cost of gas. I didn't include the cost of gas because this came out of my girlfriend's basement, so I'm kind of over there already anyway. And I'm not including the cost of tooling. Now, this machine came home with tooling. It didn't come home with collets. It came home with some hold downs and some other junk. But it didn't actually come home with anything really all that useful. At least not stuff I didn't already have. So now I have tooling that's set up for both machines, which is really nice. But running down the list here, I wrote it all down just so we're on the same page here. Is it $70 to rent a trailer to drive this home? I already had an engine hoist and a lifting sling and scrap lumber. So if you had to get some scrap lumber because we had to drag this 20 feet out of a basement, that's going to cost what it cost. I already had bad 2x4s and a shitty piece of plywood to use as a sled. The head needed some repairs, so I had to replace both of the drive pulleys in the front. I had to replace bearings and a bunch of other small parts in the head, like this knob here. I re-greased everything, and that was about $1,200. I don't have my invoices in front of me, but it was between $1,150 and $1,250. So I just put down $1,200. Now I also bought 4-core 3-phase 220 volt rated or 440 volt rated wiring. I think it actually might even be rated for 600 volts. I'd have to look at it. But yeah, it's 300 volts. So we're good to go in that regard. But that plus the VFD was give or take $400. It was either like $390 or $395. I did have to replace the clock spring in this because it was broken, unfortunately, which is a source of annoyance for me. I really don't like that when the clock spring breaks. It bothers the crap out of me. I also spent $320 on a digital readout, and I spent $180 on a power feed for the Z-axis. Overall, something I think that's worth buying. I could probably discuss that in another video. This already had an X-axis servo power feed, which I'm very happy about. It runs great. And I spent $150 on the steel and materials for leveling feet. So we're in $1,909, and that doesn't include a milling machine vise. It doesn't include things like boring heads, collets, fly cutters, drill chucks, all of that other things that you wind up purchasing alongside the mill when you're using it. And I think it's really important when people are budgeting and buying machines that you understand when you buy a used machine, it's going to need some minor repairs. Now, both of my mills have required work, unfortunately. They were not just plug and play. And this machine needed a lot more love because it was a vari-speed drive, and the vari-speed drives are just a little bit more demanding maintenance-wise. And unfortunately, that's what I ran into here. And I really can't fault the machine for that. You kind of have to figure that any of the sub $3,000 or $4,000 vari-speeds are going to need, at minimum, bushings in the head and possibly more. Now, I needed to replace the pulleys, not the bushings, because the belt had rusted to them, and there was deep pitting that, I tried remachining them, but I didn't feel comfortable with them. They weren't quite balanced. There wasn't a lot of material left, and I didn't want to beat the spindle bearings or any of the more expensive and harder to replace bearings to death. So that's what I did, is I just replaced those pulleys, and that's $400 and something in parts right there. Now, there's always nickel and dime things, like you're going to go through Scotch-Brite to clean everything up, mineral spirits, kerosene, whatever you have. The rams on these can be frozen in place, so you're going to want to free those up. There's a lot of little stuff in these machines that you get to when you buy them, and it's all hidden cost that you don't necessarily think of when you're getting a machine. Now, I also replaced this quill scale on here because the other one just didn't line up right, and it bothered the crap out of me. So I want this on here because I like it for just drilling to approximate depth. I know I have this quill indicator, but I'm not really a huge fan of the quill indicators, to be honest, guys. It's nice when I'm drilling to a specific stop because I can just set 0 on here, and put this quill stop under here. I can just set 0 this way, and now I know I'm boring to the same depth every time within a couple thousandths, and that's kind of convenient. This machine also did come with a quill stop to begin with, which is, these are a really nice quality of life thing when you're drilling with depth a lot. I'm not going to frown on them at all. And probably the most important quality of life thing, more so than I think power feeds, because I got by without power feeds for a long time on my other mill, and I didn't really miss them until I knew what I was missing by getting 2 of them, is this digital readout. Now, this is a 2 auto, which I've reviewed in other videos. They're not, to be honest, guys, I know they're not the best DROs. In a lot of ways, I don't think they're the same quality as the T-Pack Tools one I have, but I'm not going to sit here and spend millions and millions on this. I really wanted to try and keep my budget on this machine of about $2,000, and that's what I hit. So I really have a $2,000 Bridgeport, and I'm okay with that. And I don't think you're going to do better in the $2,000 price point. And for me, I really like that both of my milling machines, I've got a good story behind them. I've got emotional attachment to them. And it makes them more fun for me to use because of that. And I think that that's something that a lot of people can't say, that they run machines every day that were kind of not necessarily family, but people that they're close to. And I'm able to do that every day, which is really nice, because I've got 2 of them now. I've got one from an old mentor, and I've got one from my girlfriend. I unfortunately did just sell a drill press because I can't really justify keeping all of these machines around all the time. There's only so much space in my shop, so I can't become this massive clutter where I've got so much crap in here I can't work. I'm choosing to clutter the shop with tooling instead of machines, because once I put a neck riser on this machine, I can do everything I need on it that I would be able to do on my drill press that I have since gotten rid of. Really just last week. I think I've recorded a separate video that this may go live first. There's really no rhyme or reason for what gets posted. It's just when I'm pawing through videos I've recorded, it's just, what do I see at the top of the list? They're not in chronological order, so the shop's going to look different in them. And getting back to it, I think there's a certain value in getting fixer-upper machines because you really know what you're dealing with. Now, if the base is in good condition, which this base is in excellent condition, I see absolutely no problem with throwing a bunch of money into the head, because I fixed the head first on this before I did anything else. And that's how I personally like to work, which is fix the head and then work my way down through all of the other issues, because I could sell the head off of this for the money I have into it. Because if you're familiar with vari-speed heads, I'm going to plug this in and run it real quick. It's very quiet now. So yep, VFD's powered. So that's pretty quiet for a vari-speed head. We're running about 1,000 RPM, I believe. 800. So we'll run it up. You know, that's pretty quiet for a vari-speed. It's not perfect. I mean, I know there's always room for improvement. I could replace more parts. I could get stuff balanced better. You know, obviously I can always make it better. And a lot of that noise is actually coming from the VFD and the motor itself. You know, and it runs smooth. So before I had really gone and done a really good job replacing everything, I could feel the shake in the floor once I had this up above 3,000 RPM, which I no longer feel. And it turns on nicer, it's just smoother. And, you know, it's definitely a headache, guys. Like, I don't think it's always ideal to be putzing around with a lot of these fixer-upper machines, because you don't really necessarily want your first machine to require as much work as this one did, where it wasn't that expensive, but I spent 4 or 5 days pawing through this, going through everything, you know, clearing it up. And I went through a lot of penetrating oil to free shit up. And that's kind of one of the other things, too, you don't think about is when you're buying a used mill, you're going to find little nickel and dime things that are going to burn up a lot of your time getting it functional. And when you go buy a brand new machine, even if it's not a super high quality one, you really know what you're in for from the get-go. And that does have a certain value. Now, that may not necessarily be that important to you, and obviously it wasn't to me because I chose the route of, you know, buying a used machine and cleaning it up. Now, just because I think it's nice to have, I'm going to put a little scribe line in here because I don't always want to have to use the DRO, and the way I clocked this, I can't really easily read this. I have to step off to the side, so when I'm standing here, I just want to look straight down and see my scribe line. So yeah, now I can use it as a reference when I'm moving the knee up and down. Something I probably could have done off camera, but it's a good example of just the small little things that go into a used machine, and it all adds up to quite a bit of time if you're not prepared for it, and it may add up to quite a bit of frustration. Now, if you're like me, and again, you're willing to put the time in, you're not afraid of it, this is how I like to acquire machines, which is very low cost, you know, relatively high effort. And I think that that's valuable too, that you're ready and you understand how you want to acquire machines. Because a lot of people, you know, I know a lot of people who are just like, screw this, I just want to throw money at it, and I just want to go buy something new, and I don't care that I'm spending that much more money. And I completely empathize and I completely understand that, because I am that way with certain things. Now, I'm that way with dial indicators. Like, I almost never buy them used. I'll be gifted them used, but I never buy them used. And I'm kind of that way with chainsaws, because a lot of people just abuse their chainsaws. So I don't want to buy used saws, because I just don't want to get into someone else's maintenance nightmare. But these machines are expensive enough, people usually take care of them. And they're oftentimes not discarded when they're at the point of uselessness. They're oftentimes discarded when they're at the point of the shop or the owner upgraded, or in this case, the original owner died. So that is not problematic to me. I'm not afraid of these problems, because also I know that I could easily sell this for more than I have into it, because it's under power now and it runs. So there's no questions there that I won't lose my shirt on it. And that's kind of nice. And I really like that. You know, I don't have a lot of cash into this, and I'm a really very small business in a relatively immature state of business. So for me, not having cash tied up in my equipment as much as possible is really valuable. And it gives me a lot of flexibility I wouldn't have otherwise to take risks on new ventures and add new services, which is really nice because I think being relatively nimble and flexible as a business is the most valuable thing I can do. So thanks for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. We're probably going to talk about more similar things in this vein at some point. So if you're interested in subscribing and you're interested in this type of content, I hope you enjoy the channel. I really enjoy sharing this, and I love getting to chit chat and sort of explore the less obvious parts of machining and owning a business.